It can create unity and division.
It's often said to be a measure of public opinion.
It can be exciting and unpredictable, or predictable and frustrating.
Do you know what it is?
Hi, I'm Sid, and welcome to Democracy Rules. If you guessed an election, you'd be right. The election process is one of the fundamentals of our government by the people, where voters choose public officials. The process is vital to our democracy. But do you think all voters are vital to the process? Let's see what some of you have to say.
Hi, I'm Shavela. Do you vote?
No, I'm too young to vote, but if I was able to vote, I would vote.
Do you think it's important for others to vote?
I think it's very important for others to vote. Being that we are the leaders of tomorrow, I think that we hold the economy in our hands.
You can vote the person you like and good for the nation, and they can decide a good situation for the people.
I feel that it's very important for others to vote because without them, their voice won't be heard, and then they don't have a say what goes on in their lives.
So one, as a citizen, it's my obligation to vote. And secondly, I get to choose who governs.
Unfortunately, too many people of all ages feel that voting isn't really important, or that their one vote won't make a difference. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Let's go to our resident expert, Senator Les Miller.
Thanks, Sid. I'm pleased to have Kurt Browning, Florida's Secretary of State, with me today. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. One of your roles as Secretary of State is to be the Florida's Chief of Elections. What does that entail?
Well, as the state's Chief Elections Officer, we're responsible for all the candidate qualifying for statewide candidates, congressional candidates, judges and state attorneys, public defenders, as well as House and Senate members, as well as the reporting, campaign reporting for those candidates. We're also responsible for maintaining the state's online voter registration system. We'd call that the Florida voter registration system. That was due to a federal mandate that came down in 2006. As well, we maintain all the election records, all the election results since the beginning of the state's statehood in 1845, and then also the certification of voting systems. The voting systems that are used throughout the counties in Florida are certified by our division.
A very important job.
Yes.
Important job. Let's talk for a minute about voting systems. We've seen a lot of changes and controversies in the last few years, from punch cards to computer touch screens. Why so much emphasis on physical active voting?
Well, I think that voting systems always draw the eye of groups out there, individual citizens. They want to make sure their votes count. And it's the desire of this Secretary and the Department of State to ensure that voting systems that are certified count ballots properly. We want to make sure we have tight procedures. I will tell you that the security piece on voting systems is incredible. I think supervisors of elections locally will develop security procedures and file those with the Department of State to ensure that there's chains of custody on voting materials, ballots. You know, if systems are not secure, I think our voters tend to lose confidence in their elections. And since this elections, we've moved from touchscreens now to optical scan, giving voters a paper ballot, which we think is critical to restoring confidence and transparency in that process.
That also gives us the opportunity to have a backup in case something happens, because there's been a lot of talk about a paper trail, am I correct?
Absolutely. I was a big supporter of touchscreen voting systems, but you know, the governor was very clear to the legislature when he took office that he believed that voters needed to have a paper ballot. The legislature passed that, and the supervisors and the Department of State implemented that new law. So I think that when voters now go to the polls, they will have that paper ballot, physically mark a ballot, and if there's ever a need to go back to that piece of paper, we can do that.
Since we're on that, there's a lot of scrutiny concerning the elections process, as we all know. How long are voting records kept and how long are they used?
Well, voting records, by law, it depends on the type of record. We have records that we will keep forever. Elections records will be kept forever. I mean, as far as the results of elections, conduct of election reports that are filed by the 67 supervisors of elections detailing any issues that they may have in the conduct of an election, those are kept for a very long time. The voters' records back in the individual counties are kept forever. Yeah. There are certain records that are on a disposal schedule that really that's governed by the local supervisors. But we want to keep those records so in the event that we want to look at trends on election results on how people are voting, that's available to universities, college students, citizens in general.
Secretary Browning, it is very obviously that a lot of people take their voting very seriously. Sid, Secretary Browning and I will talk about voting registration in just a few minutes, but why don't you get us started?
Our votes are our voices in government. If we want people in public office that think and act like we want, then we need to vote for those people to win elections. And if we don't like any of the candidates and think we can do a better job, then we need to run for the office. Ours is a government by the people, and we can be part of it. But to get started, you have to be a registered voter.
Voting is the first duty of democracy.
All right then, I'll bet you've got lots of questions about registering to vote. How do you know if you're eligible to register? If you are, how do you do it? And then, how do you learn how to vote? These are all legitimate questions, and today we're going to answer all of them, plus a bunch more.
Eligible, qualified to participate, legitimate, justified, logical, genuine.
Let's jump back for a second. If you remember, the Constitution doesn't address voting. It was one of the powers left to each state to regulate. Constitutional amendments guarantee the right to vote to all U.S. citizens 18 years and older, but the states control the rest. So the first thing you need to know is if you're eligible to vote by our state's rules. Let's go find Florida's requirements to answer that question.
I'm at the website for information, the official site of the Florida Department of State Division of Elections. Find voter registration on the left, and you're on your way to finding answers. Let's look at Florida's qualifications for registering to vote. First, you must be a citizen of the United States. The Constitution says citizens can vote, but doesn't say non-citizens can't. Any state could allow them to vote, but Florida doesn't. Next, you must be a Florida resident. Some states have minimum residency requirements, but Florida just requires proof of residency. Next, you must be 18 years old. Florida's minimum age matches the Constitution, but states can allow younger voters if they want. You can't be officially mentally incapacitated or a convicted felon unless you've had your rights restored. And last, you have to register.
The United States is the only democratic country that requires citizens to register to vote. All other democracies automatically register all eligible citizens. And that's a fact.
Registering to vote is actually not hard to do, and you can do it from the same website. Farther down on the same page are the specific instructions for completing the application, plus an application download link at the bottom of the page. After you fill in the application, be sure to sign it. You'd be surprised how many people don't. When you're finished, you can't email or fax it back because the state wants your original signature. You can find the address for mailing through this link, as well as a list of locations where you can drop off your application.
There are more than 630,000 registered voters in Hillsborough County, and that's a fact.
Registering to vote is pretty easy, but you have to do it at least 29 days before you want to actually vote. Soon, it may be even easier to register and vote. Let's check back in with Senator Miller.
That's right, Sid. Secretary Browning, the online application is one way that both registering and voting are becoming easier and more convenient. What other methods are being used to encourage citizens to register and vote?
Well, I've always said that voter registration in Florida is an easy process. Citizens in Florida can register literally at thousands of locations across Florida. Supervisors of elections have voter registration applications in businesses and post offices and retail outlets. So it's nice where they can go and pick up an application, fill it out, and drop it in the mail. On the online voter registration application, we want to make it clear that that's not truly online. It's online in the sense that you can go to the site, you can enter in all your specific data, information, and then when you submit that, the form is completed for you, it's mailed to you, and you must sign it and then return it to your local supervisor. That signature drives a lot of things. Therefore, we have to require that original signature. That signature will be used to verify absentee ballots should you vote by absentee. Also, the verification of petitions, for whether you're signing a candidate petition or an initiative petition. You know, there's a lot of things out there as far as being able to register to vote. And we want to make sure that the methodologies that we have out there for voters or residents to use are easy to understand and readily available.
But let's get to this important issue. Even though we're talking to some students that may be just about ready to register to vote, that if they do it online, they are not really registered. It's going to take that form coming back to them signing it and taking it. Am I right?
That is correct. Now, I will also tell you that supervisors of elections across Florida do a great job at going into high schools, educating students on the importance of voting, voter registration, voting systems, how they work, why it's important to register, and also why it's important to be involved in voting. So supervisors do a great job at that on the local level.
That's important.
Yes, it is.
The online access to information on your website is great. Do you see ways that technology could be even greater access to the voting process in the future?
Well, that's always an issue that's been debated for some time. I will tell you, as a practitioner of elections, everybody will ask me, well, what do you think about online voting? Do you think we'll ever be able to vote on the internet? And I'm sure that one day we will be there, but I am not so certain that it will be what I call anytime soon. And when I say soon, I'm talking within the next 7 to 10 years. There is still a lot of discussions about internet security and the sanctity or the security of that ballot. I know just with touchscreen voting systems in a controlled environment at a polling place, there was a great deal of issue about the security of those votes. It concerns me when you start throwing votes out onto the internet in an unsecured fashion, so that the security of ballots is big business, and it's huge to me, and we want to make sure before we start moving down that path that security measures are in place to ensure that voters' votes are being counted properly.
Right. We talk about down the road before we have online voting. But do you think that more technology in other areas will result in more people registering to vote and having more voters?
You know, it's a hard, that's probably one of those social science questions because, people vote for different reasons. And I've always said that if there's an exciting candidate out there on the ballot, if it depends on the political environment, if there are issues on the ballot that affect your pocketbook, then that drives people to the polls. If people go to vote for different reasons, some out of a civic responsibility, others because of a candidate they may have met, and it's just hard to say. I'm not so certain that technology is going to drive increased voter turnout numbers. I use early voting as a probably somewhat of a good example of that. Everybody thought that when we got early voting in Florida earlier, several years back, that the turnout numbers were going to be increased. Well, what studies have found was that early voting does nothing for turnout. It's mainly a convenience issue. It allows folks to vote when they want to vote in that 15-day period. We find that the same people that vote early were the same ones that were voting at the polls on general election day or primary election day. So we don't want to preclude any introduction of technology. Obviously, we're looking at newer technology on how we can get younger folks involved with the process.
A lot of work to be done.
A lot of work
to be done. Back to you, Sid.
Thanks, Senator. Now, let's look at voting. Of course, between registering to vote and the act of voting, you've got some work to do. You need to learn about the offices up for election as well as the candidates and what they stand for to be ready to make your choices. But let's say you've already done all of that and you're ready to vote.
First, you need to know where to go to vote. You can find that at Hillsborough County's great website, votehillsborough.org. Go to Find My Precinct, put in your address, and bam! There's your precinct number. Continue, select My Polling Place, and you'll have a location. If you still have questions about who's in office now or what offices are up for election, look at the precinct page. It's all there and a great resource for information. You don't need to worry about how to actually vote. Voting with the state's new optical scan voting system is as easy as filling out a standard form. This new system allows for electronic vote tallying and a paper trail backup for vote confirmation. Go to How to Vote for a demonstration plus information on early and absentee voting.
Different states can use several different types of ballots, and ballots can be organized in a couple of ways. Sometimes they are organized by office, that is, everyone running for the same office is listed together. Other times, they are organized by party affiliation, with each party's candidates grouped together.
Affiliation, a formal connection, the state of being formally associated together.
Usually, a sample ballot is mailed to voters, printed in the newspaper, or available other places prior to every election. In fact, many people fill out a sample ballot at home and take it with them when they vote.
There, you should be set with registering and the mechanics of voting. Now let's look at the other side of the election quotient, the candidates. To be a candidate, first someone must decide they want to run for office. How do they come to that conclusion? For a personal perspective, let's hear from Senator Miller.
Thanks, Shavila. Secretary Browning, you were appointed Secretary of State by the governor, but previously you served as Supervisor of Elections of Pasco County, Florida. When did you first decide to run for office?
Well, I served as Supervisor of Elections for 26 years in Pasco County, and I was elected at the age of 22. And I had worked in the supervisor's office for about 5 years, right out of high school. It was a work program that I got involved with, and fell in love with the work. In 1980, the former supervisor decided she was going to retire, and everybody looked at me when I was 21 at that time and said, well, why don't you? I was a student at the University of South Florida, and so I decided that I'd give it a shot. I wanted to go to law school, and so it was really a win-win. If I lost, I go to law school. If I won, I was a supervisor. So 26 years later, I was serving until I got the call from the governor.
At the age of 21, you ran for Supervisor of Elections.
21 when I filed papers, turned 22, got elected in the general election when I was 22 years old.
And served?
26 years.
26 years.
Sure did.
So, of those experiences that you had as a public servant, what has that taught you?
Well, I hold public service as a high calling. It is an incredible challenge to serve. I think in the political environment, it's always been a challenge, but I think in the environment that we find ourselves in over the last decade, and I'm sure going into the future, the challenges that are out there are just incredible to make our communities better places to live. Whether you're a supervisor of elections, a tax collector, or a county commissioner, a state representative, I mean, you can make a difference.
And the state is growing so fast, and I know when you were probably Supervisor of Elections in Pasco County that the population was much smaller than it was when you left there.
Oh, it was.
It made it much more difficult.
It was, and small rural communities, right. And now we're the 12th largest state or county in the state, and things have changed, and you've got to be able to adapt to that change and be able to respond to people's needs. It's not my process, it's their process.
And now you're the Secretary of State of a state of 18.5 million people.
It's incredible.
Quite a jump. It's incredible. Why should people consider running for office?
Well, I think to make a difference, to invoke positive change. I think there may be some degree of cynicism out there that you can't make change, and I will take anybody to task on that one. You're not going to make changes if you're not going to be involved, and what better way to be involved and make changes than to think about running for public office. It's a great calling.
So how do people explore the possibilities of running for office?
Well, I encourage students that I talk to on a regular basis to get involved in local campaigns. I don't know of any campaign locally, whether it's a state house, a state senate race, a county commission race, school board race, whatever it may be, is getting involved with those campaigns. They are looking for folks to help them, either go door to door, stuff envelopes, make phone calls, put out signs. You really find out what the grassroots is all about in a campaign when you do that. And you just never know, the bug just might bite.
That's how I got started.
Absolutely.
I remember standing on those corners in the heat.
Absolutely.
As the bus went by with all those fumes. It was tough, but that's how I got started. Very good, very good. Okay, Shavila, give our potential candidates some more information.
Will do, Senator. Now let's say you decide to run for public office in Hillsborough County. What do you have to do to become a candidate? Let's check out votehillsborough.org again. Go to Running for Office, Becoming a Candidate, and you'll have a comprehensive look at what it takes. Here are the basics. Candidates must be U.S. citizens, registered voters, and residents of Hillsborough County. In addition, all candidates have to submit financial disclosure forms, a loyalty oath, and something called an oath of candidate.
Oath, a solemn promise of the truth of what one says, or of the sincerity to do what one says.
After the paperwork, you have to qualify in one of two ways: by paying a fee or by getting a petition signed by 1% of the district's voters. Every candidate has to complete all of this by a qualifying deadline date.
What would be the advantages of a candidate qualifying by petition besides saving the money?
Once you've gone on the ballot, that's just the beginning. Now, you have to campaign, get other people to campaign for you, raise campaign funds, and secure votes. If you are running as either a Democrat or a Republican, the first elections you have to win are the primaries or party-nominated elections. These elections decide each party's candidate. Independent candidates don't have to worry about primaries. Primaries can be open or closed. In an open primary, anyone can vote for any candidate. Florida has closed primaries, which means only declared party members can vote for their own party's candidates.
After the primary election is the general election, where each party is represented, plus any independent candidates. All voters participate in this election to choose one winner. Some elections will also include local initiatives on the ballot. Local initiatives are proposed laws brought to the ballot by people like you and me. This is something else done by petition. The proposal must have a certain number of signed supporters to get a spot on the ballot.
Why would a group want to bring a local initiative to an election rather than present it as a bill to the legislature?
General elections are held in every even year, except for the presidential election, which is held every 4 years. Elections held in non-presidential election years are called midterm elections. Some members of Congress, state legislators, and some governors are elected in midterm elections. Serving in public office involves much more than just running for election and winning. It takes knowledge, commitment, and dedication to making our own community and our country a better place. No one knows that better than our own Senator Miller.
That's right, Sid. Public service is a big commitment, and so is voting. Secretary Browning, the first step for any citizen who wants to be involved is to vote. Do Floridians vote, and what's our voting record?
It depends on the election. It depends on whether it's a primary or a general. We average 37% turnout for the primaries, which is pretty low, but yet we jump up to 64% of average turnout for a general election. Again, I think it depends on the election, it depends on the candidates, depends on the issues.
Yeah. So what are some of the excuses you've heard from people as to why they don't vote?
Well, I think we find out that I don't have the time, I have kids, I work. I've said over and over again, there's no reason why people in Florida do not vote. They can vote early, they can vote absentee, they can vote at the polling place.
Now, this is an important question because a lot of people ask me this: what happens when they don't vote?
Well, they stay on the rolls through 2 federal general elections. Obviously, we want people to vote. We want people to be engaged in the process. But before anyone is removed from the voter registration rolls, there is notices that will be sent to these voters. As long as you vote and stay active on the rolls, you'll never hear from the supervisor of elections.
And this is a very important question. Why should our young people be actively involved in voting in particular, and being actively involved in politics?
Well, again, I think it's to make that change, to be an informed citizen. They need to understand that the people that they're electing are the ones that are going to be levying taxes. They're going to be taking money out of their pocketbooks, their wallets, to pave roads, pay police officers, school teachers, keep the lights on in government facilities, provide programs, libraries, parks. These are the folks that are doing that. And if you sit home and not be involved with the process, you're pretty much saying everything's okay. I don't care what they do. And I don't think that's the message that they necessarily want to send. We want people to be involved.
Secretary Brown, we want to thank you for being here with us today, because you're a perfect guest for this segment. You were 21 or 22 when you became supervisor of elections for Pasco County, not much older than some of these students, and it showed that you were very interested and got involved in the political process and doing a great job there. So you're a perfect person to show these young people how important it is to be involved and get involved and stay involved in voting, and how important voting is. So we want to thank you so very much for being here, and thank you for the service that you've given to the state of Florida. Thank you so very much. Sid, Shavella, we're out of time.
Well, now you know the basics for registering to vote, voting, and even becoming a candidate.
That's another great thing about a democracy, being able to participate in government.
Remember, democracy rules, and you rule in a democracy.
We'll see you next time.
Democracy rules!